October 7, 2023, history took an unexpected turn as Palestinian militant groups led by Hamas launched a daring invasion and offensive against Israel from the Gaza Strip. Breaking through the Gaza-Israel barrier, they stormed into Israeli territory, catching the world by surprise. This marked the first direct conflict within Israel's borders since the 1948 Arab-Israeli War and led to Israel formally declaring war for the first time since the 1973 Yom Kippur War. The conflict erupted after months of escalating tensions, including clashes in Jenin and at Al-Aqsa Mosque, which had already claimed the lives of hundreds of Palestinians and Israelis. In the early hours of that fateful day, rockets rained down on Israel and armed groups crossed into Israeli territory, launching attacks on civilian communities and military bases. Some have dubbed these events as the start of a third Palestinian intifada. In an emergency meeting, Palestinian authorities Mahmoud Abbas expressed support for the Gaza infiltration, citing the right to self-defense against Israeli occupation. In Israel, major opposition parties called for a national unity government to counter the Palestinian offensive. The violence intensified with over 2,200 rockets fired from Gaza, resulting in casualties on both sides. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared the nation was at war. The Palestinian Ministry of Health reported civilian casualties, including children and women, while the Israel Defense Forces claimed to have targeted terrorists. Reports emerged of Israeli civilians and soldiers being taken hostage by Palestinian militants. Internationally, Iran supported the Palestinian offensive, while many countries, including Western nations and India, condemned Hamas's tactics as terrorism. Some Muslim nations blamed the Israeli occupation and denial of Palestinian self-determination as the root cause, while others called for de-escalation. The world watched with bated breath as the conflict unfolded, hoping for a resolution to this historic and unexpected clash. Terminology: the Palestinian militant groups dubbed their assault Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, while Israel announced the beginning of a counteroffensive effort called Operation Iron Swords. On 8 October, Israel announced that the Security Cabinet had declared a war. Several news agencies and observers have described the ongoing conflict as a third intifada. Background: the conflict between the Gaza Strip and Israel has deep historical roots, dating back to Israel's withdrawal from Gaza in 2005 and Hamas taking control in 2006. The area has been under blockade since 2007, leading to dire conditions and economic hardship. In 2023, violence flared up again, with casualties on both sides. Israel's far-right government increased settlement construction in the West Bank, causing tension. The attack happened during Simchat Torah and followed a negotiated truce. Saudi Arabia and Israel were in talks to normalize relations, but warned against Gaza's occupation. Hamas's military leader Mohammed Deif cited Al-Aqsa Mosque desecration and Palestinian casualties as reasons for the attack, calling for resistance. Others mentioned defending Palestinian prisoners in Israeli custody. The situation remains complex and volatile. Palestinian prisoners. Since 1967, Israel has arrested a staggering number of Palestinians, with nearly 1 million individuals detained. Shockingly, around 40% of Palestinian males have experienced Israeli imprisonment at some point in their lives. Currently, there are close to 5,200 Palestinian prisoners, including 170 children and 1,200 Palestinians held without charge or trial. These detainees face an average detention period of a year, with Israel keeping the charges against them secret for security reasons. Hamas has used these abductions to draw attention to the plight of Palestinian prisoners and their demand for freedom. In 2006, they captured Gilad Shalit, leading to a prisoner swap in which Israel released 1,000 Palestinians. It's a deeply complex and sensitive issue in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Palestinian offensive. On the morning of October 7, 2023, Hamas initiated Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, unleashing a relentless rocket barrage from the Gaza Strip into Israel. They claimed to have fired over 5,000 rockets in just 20 minutes, while Israeli sources reported at least 3,000 projectiles launched. Tragically, these attacks resulted in 5 casualties. Explosions rocked areas around Gaza and Israeli cities, including Tel Aviv, Ashkelon, and more. Air raid sirens blared in various locations, including Beersheba, Jerusalem, and others. In response, Hamas called on Muslims worldwide to join the fight, and Palestinian militants targeted Israeli boats off the Gaza coast while clashes erupted along the Gaza perimeter fence. The evening witnessed another barrage of approximately 150 rockets hitting various Israeli cities. The next morning, more rockets struck, including one tragically hitting a hospital in Ashkelon. The situation remained tense and volatile as the conflict intensified. Casualties. Israel. Tragically, the conflict took a heavy toll on Israeli civilians and military personnel. At least 700 Israelis lost their lives, with over 2,200 wounded, including 360 in critical condition. The casualties included civilians in places like Kfar Aviv, Ashkelon, and Yav. Heartbreakingly, 9 people were fatally shot at a bus shelter in Sderot, and several others lost their lives in Kusif. Even military personnel were not spared, with 44 IDF soldiers confirmed killed, including notable figures like Colonel Yonan Steinberg and Colonel Roy Levy. Ashkelon and Beersheva reported a significant number of casualties, while a tragic incident unfolded at a nature party in Reem, known as the Reem Music Festival Massacre, where dozens lost their lives. Hamas and other groups took at least 100 Israelis prisoner and transported them to Gaza, adding another layer of complexity to the situation. The conflict's human toll continued to mount as the world watched in dismay. Palestine. The devastating toll on Palestinians in Gaza continued to rise, with reports from the Palestinian Ministry of Health stating that 413 Palestinians, including 78 children and 41 women, had tragically lost their lives. Approximately 2,000 others were injured, and most casualties resulted from firefights inside Israel. Tragically, even hospitals and medical personnel were not spared, with reports of strikes on healthcare facilities and the loss of medical staff. The United Nations revealed that over 123,000 Palestinians had been displaced, with airstrikes destroying homes and severely damaging thousands of others. The conflict's impact on civilians and infrastructure was staggering, painting a grim picture of the unfolding tragedy. Analysis. The recent attacks have signaled a significant shift in Palestinian politics, highlighting the decline of the Palestine Liberation Organization (PLO) and the ascent of Hamas as a dominant power center. Analysts suggest that if the current situation persists, the PLO's influence may continue to wane. From an Israeli perspective, this attack represents a substantial escalation in the ongoing conflict with Hamas. Unlike previous conflicts, it involved a broad spectrum of tactics, including both rocket fire and border attacks in Gaza. This event stands out for its scale and reach, breaking the pattern of gradual tension escalation. Some have even compared it to historic events like the 1973 Yom Kippur War, the 2001 September 11 attacks, and the 1968 Tet Offensive in Vietnam. Much like the Tet Offensive, Hamas' attack came on a holiday, appeared to be everywhere at once, and showcased capabilities previously underestimated in a guerrilla force. It's a turning point in a long-standing conflict. Share your thoughts and insights on this significant development in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. What are your views on the changing dynamics between Hamas and the PLO? Stay updated on the latest news and analysis by subscribing to our channel or newsletter. Don't miss out on important updates regarding this evolving situation.